Big changes in the weather pattern for the United States. Pretty good heat wave for the West. Now it's turned for the East. And we're talking major heat wave. Let's take a look at conditions so far in June and what we expect into July. This is Alex Tardy with Weather Echo. Thanks for joining us. So far in June, it's been really wet in the southwest, desert southwest. Not monsoon related, but an inverted pattern, very dry in the northwest where they should be getting rain in June. Continued wet conditions in the middle of the country as shown here. Now, temperatures are the big story. Temperatures are really going to change. So it's been really warm really since May in the west as shown in the red, much above normal. This weather pattern is going to shift to the east over the next week. The red shows areas that are much above normal temperatures so far in June. Now, why? The upper ridge or dome of hot air has been dominating across the west as shown here with a little dip in the jet stream to the right. So keep an eye on this weather pattern. This is what's going to change. This is the average weather pattern. This has resulted in a lot of snowmelt in the west as well. Speaking of, Mammoth closed on Father's Day. This is an image of the latest snowfall that remains across the summit of Mammoth Mountain. You can find more information on our blog post about Mammoth Mountain and other ski resorts in the United States. Now, I mentioned a heat wave in California. Quite a heat wave. We had some records. The hottest day was Father's Day, June 15th. We've seen this a lot in heat waves where the first day is the hottest. You can see it trended downward in most areas except for the desert stayed steady. We even got up to around 90 on the coast. There were some records, as noted here, Ramona, even an overnight low record at Palm Springs of 82 degrees. These are temperatures we typically see in July and August. So very warm conditions, especially the first day of the heat wave. The heat risk is shown here. On Father's Day, on Sunday, it was widespread moderate and large areas across the deserts of red. Now, this is the predicted heat risk. So the actual, if predictions are below what actually occurred, if temperatures are hotter than what actually occurred, even by 1, 2, 3 degrees, this threat and risk goes up. So these colors are actually more widespread. Currently, the heat risk is expanding into the upper Midwest. This is going to shift and be major for the East Coast as shown here, especially the lower Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. We're talking major heat wave. So watch for the current heat warnings. They're already starting to expand to heat watches in the upper Midwest, and that should expand to most of the East. This is through next week, so through June 25th. What's causing it? So normal weather patterns shift west to east, and so do heat domes. The heat dome has been over the southwest as shown here. It's going to be replaced by a Pacific storm system. Now, not rain for California other than some drizzle, but Pacific Northwest, finally some rain, and they do need it up there to help with fire weather conditions. The heat dome will shift as well, as shown here, this coming weekend. Now, really the big changes are obvious next week. Early next week, not only does the heat dome shift, it expands and gets stronger in response to the Pacific trough in the west and the storm in Canada as shown here. So yes, warm air gets warmer, cold air gets colder. When one system gets stronger, the other one responds to it. We call that a more amplified weather pattern. That's going to result in this major heat wave in the east. Now, does it break? It looks like it does break after June 28th, and it flattens out and spreads across the country in the lower 48. Now, it looks like this is the potential for a setup where payback, we get a massive heat wave in the west, is often the case when these weather patterns shift. So we got to keep an eye on that closely. So for the rest of June, there's that heat wave. Wet conditions continuing in the southwest with a little bit of monsoon activity there. And the East Coast should be setting records with this heat wave over about a week period. So this is the outlook that takes us through late June. Now, updated summer outlook. So from July through September, this is just updated on June 19th. The West is still expected in a continuation of the Great Basin and Northwest, much above average. So confidence is high there. Same with the Northeast and continued wet conditions in the East Coast and Mid-Atlantic. So this is July through September, just updated. Now, I mentioned a potential heat wave for July. Where am I getting that from? Well, the cool conditions will be around through the rest of June now. So we've entered into cooler conditions, Pacific trough. East Coast is going to bake, sizzle with a heat wave. That shows up here very well in week 1 and 2. Now take a look at week 3 and 4. I told you it was going to flatten out and spread across the United States. That looks like it's going to happen, so staying above normal for the eastern United States, especially the southeast, but spreading back to the west. So we got to keep an eye on that closely in July. We typically, in the recent years and in history, seen some big heat waves in July, and that's been the trend. And trend usually indicates what ends up happening. So this is also a new release today, and it indicates that July should be above average, warmer than normal, centered on the Great Basin in Utah, but also much of California and the Southwest. No indication of an active monsoon setting up and continued wet in the east. Now, this has big fire weather implications. So if this does materialize, we're already seeing a lot of wildfire, brush fire activity in June in marginal conditions with the recent heat. Now, the fuel's drying out rapidly. July could be very active with fire weather if this materializes with potential for significant heat again, and maybe more significant than June in the west and southwest, and potential for increased fire weather activity. So stay tuned for July. Enjoy this temporary relief in the rest of June of cooler weather and more average conditions across the west. You can always find the latest information on our social media and on our blog. So please check out those for more information. We're posting this on YouTube, but we also have posts on Facebook and Instagram as well. So stay safe, everyone. Enjoy the cooler weather. If you're planning on traveling, or if you know relatives in the east, major heat wave coming up for late June in the eastern United States, and that could shift back to the west for a significant heat wave starting in mid-July. So right around 4th of July, and especially in mid-July for the western United States. Stay safe, everyone.